Welcome to the inUpowers podcast, where we give a name and a face to emotion. We discuss the real and raw when it comes to mental and emotional health. We are here to teach you that emotions are information and behavior is a choice. We want to help you make safer connections through healthy communication by empowering you to understand what your emotions are telling you. I'm your host, Tami. Let's get started. Welcome to the inUpowers podcast. I'm Tami, your host, and we are going to connect with you and understand your emotions and help you understand yourself just a little bit more throughout these podcasts. Our first podcast, we're going to talk about the origins of the inUpowers, which is actually a word I made up called beUtofullness, which is beautifulness said fast. But before I do that, I want to do our Moments Minute. Have you ever caught yourself comparing or competing against someone else? Have you ever saw a mom in the grocery store and thought she had everything that you wish you had, or somebody driving a car that you wish you were driving, or somebody talented in a sport, or a gift with an instrument or art, and you found yourself comparing and competing with them based on just what you visually saw them doing? It was done all the time. In fact, the beginning of my life, or beginning of my career, I was a hairdresser, and I constantly heard people tell me that they weren't enough simply because they were comparing and competing only off of what they saw from someone else. You'll take that comparison or that competition and you'll assume they can do everything else that you can't do, which isn't true. In fact, the truth of the matter is we all have special skills and we all have a great talent, but there's also places where we're weak as well. And we need each other to become great. In fact, my word beUtofullness talks about comparisons and competing and how you can be a whole person. And that's where the beginnings of all the inUpowers started. So your moment minute is to remind yourself, if you catch yourself comparing or competing with other people, realize that you're only seeing a minute of their life. You don't know their whole life. And the only one you have control over is your own. And you can make it pretty great. Now back to what the real podcast is about, the beginnings of all of this. So I started as a hairdresser. I stood behind the chair for 25 years. And as I was standing behind the chair, and it really didn't matter what my demographic was, they could be homeless, or they could be the former dean of Harvard Business College, or they could be an entrepreneur, they could be a doctor. And the story was always the same. I'm not enough, or people don't get it. And it didn't matter how beautiful they were or how much I pointed out their brilliance was. I'm not enough broke my heart. Because everybody's enough. And so I started putting together a book to help people how they're brilliantly made to be great. And so they could see the law of beauty and understand how brilliant and beautiful they are and understand symmetry and all this stuff. Because I love the beauty world. It was my first passion. And behind the chair with my first passion in putting this book together, I started collecting all this data, and I ended up getting in a ski accident. And before then, I was an incredibly busy woman. I kept myself so busy. I'd get up at 5 a.m., I'd meditate, and then I'd make breakfast, lunch, and dinner for my kids, and then I would go to work all the time, and then I'd come home, and I'd be wherever the kids needed me, and I was just mad that I had to eat, sleep, and go to the bathroom. Very unhealthy, guys. Don't do it. This is terrible. This is not advice I'm giving you. And then I wanted a relationship with my children, especially during the teenage years. And so I talked my husband into having us buy ski passes, and I figured we'd have the money to get to the mountain and back from the mountain in the car. And what they did on the mountain while they were skiing was up to them, whether they wanted to hang out with us or their friends or whatever, but we would have an hour and a half of their attention on the weekends doing something cool. And so we started skiing. Well, one time we went as a family and my daughter fell, and I fell right behind her, and I shattered my knee. And I couldn't get up and I couldn't stand, and I do hair. And so I didn't know how I was going to do this. And it wasn't very long into that accident that I had surgery for my knee. And when I woke up from the surgery, I got extreme vertigo, which wouldn't have been terrible if I wasn't an epileptic. See, I have grand mal seizures, especially when I'm tired. But this time, after the surgery, the vertigo and my epilepsy made it so that I never stopped spinning. And I went from running a business, having employees, being behind the chair, being double booked, being super busy, figuring out my life, being frustrated that I had to stop it all, to needing babysitters because I was a danger to my healing knee and my house. And for about 2 weeks, I spent 2 weeks honestly praying to get my brain back, like just to have some focus, to just be able to live, because I was like, how am I going to live like this? I was violently throwing up. It was a mess. I was a real mess. And I was humbled. And one day I woke up and it was over. I no longer had the vertigo. And because nobody expected anything from me, because like I said, I was a mess, I went to the couch and I sat there and I looked down at my knee and I realized that entire time I was focusing on my brain, which has been broken for a very long time because I'm an epileptic and I'm dyslexic and blah, 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 blah. I'm not identified by any of it, but it is me. My knee never stopped healing. And I looked down and I saw the wounds healing. And at that time, I ended up getting a wheelchair, which I named Freedom. And I got myself a drink of water and I started folding clothes. It normally took 20 minutes, took 4 hours. And I was just in shock. And while I looked down and realized all of these things had made my life easier and hard, and I was focusing, I never really appreciated my life. I didn't appreciate my heart till it skipped a beat. I was always focused on my brain because it's always broken, and in the worst circumstances it breaks. I wasn't focusing on my gut or my knee. I was just trying to survive. But when I stopped and I recognized that being alive, existing, counts and matters, I knew I had to do something with it. So I looked up the word beautiful. And as I was looking up the word beautiful, I knew that be or being existence mattered. And this is how I came up with the word, and this is the moment I got the word. So I'm going to explain beUtofullness to you, because the principles in beUtofullness and the stuff I was doing behind the chair for my staff and for the people that were telling me they weren't enough sitting in my chair is how the inUpowers were born. So this is why this is the very beginning. But be is your existence. It's the gift of being alive. If I asked you right now to find your pulse, you could probably find it. And you would be like, oh, my heart is beating. But you wouldn't be focusing on your breath or the fact that your oxygen is now fueling your heart, which is fueling your blood, which is feeding your body to absorb the food and process everything. I'm sure your thoughts are more on where you need to go, where you're driving to, what you have to make, what you have to do, where you have to be, who you have to help, who needs to help you. We spend so much time focusing on things that actually don't even exist sometimes. But we stop valuing our existence. And it's undeniable. And that was the birth of this word. And so when I recognized my existence matter, I knew that be was a thing. Now you, that was easy for me. By the way, it's my favorite letter. You see it in the podcast everywhere. But you is your uniqueness. There is no one in the world like you. And if you are comparing or competing with yourself to anyone, it's impossible. Because no one is as valuable as you are. And you make a difference. You're the only one with your eyes, your history, your family, your culture. It's your gift to the world, your talents that you offer us. And they're brilliant. And you are made the same as everyone else. Your heart's in the same place, our brains, our eyes, everything is where it belongs. That's why doctors can work on us. However, every single one of us is different. If I were to challenge you right now and ask you to go look at a grain of sand at a microscopic level, you would see that every grain of sand and every snowflake is completely different. Then why are we comparing and competing against other people when not one of us would be identically the same. You are brilliant and you're brilliantly made. So you is your uniqueness, the gift of your existence, and the beauty and the talents that you bring to the world is the be and the you. Now, too, when I was looking that up, that was pretty complicated. I'm not going to lie. It was not an easy thing. I was looking up everything. The number 2, I was looking up TI, and then I thought, oh, I'm going to look up 2, TO. And the very last definition in 2, TO, is move forward. And it was like, oh, mental health. Allow, accept, forgive, let go, set free. It's what was not happening with everybody in my chair. In fact, all of those years behind the chair, I would bring in counselors and therapists and doctors to teach us as stylists on how our communication with them would be healthier, because it was important, because we were doing all 5 love languages in one service, and yet they were leaving with what we said, and if we were trying to do individualism, we would hurt them. So 2 is moving forward. Allow, accept, forgive, let go, set free. It's your mental health. And in fact, it's actually the inUpowers, which is your emotional health, which we will talk more. With the allow, accept, forgive, let go, set free, allow yourself to be human. Accept there are things you can't change about yourself or anyone else. Forgive. Elizabeth Smart said it best to me, and the one I love to say the most is, forgiveness is giving up hope of a better past. You can't go back and rewrite it, but you can go move forward and heal and help others with it. And then forgive, let go. Let it go. Like, don't hang on to it. It's garbage. It can hurt you, and it can just be something that you use as a weapon later. Sometimes our emotional debris and stuff is because somebody did something to us, or somebody hurt us, or we perceived someone to hurt us. And all of those things can actually really damage you and damage us. And it makes us have clouded perspectives. And so you need to let it go. And a lot of people do. But when in a fight or frustrated or wanting to win something, they'll run back and pick up that garbage and throw it back at you. You got to set it free. Like, you can't go back and pick it up. Not that you forget what built you, but that you forgive what happened so you can just move forward. And the last piece of beUtofullness is your fullness. It's your weaknesses and strengths, gifts and talents. It's what makes you you. It's why we are better together. I am very good at ideas. I've made up several words. inUpowers, beUtofullness, and you'll meet the characters. I got a lot of ideas going on in this head. However, I can't draw or the beans. And I've had amazing artists who've helped us draw the characters to help represent all of the principles. And honestly, I am not a curriculum designer. I don't belong making kids work, and I definitely do not belong making therapeutic modalities and things like that. However, I have a phenomenal team that can do that for us, and have, because that's my weakness. And then also, I haven't lost my salon. By the way, I have a weird sound in my voice, so I'm going to clear my throat. Sorry. I'm going to be human, and that's a big thing about me. I'm very human. I still have my salon, and it's ran by some of the best teams, and they believe in beautifulness and the inUpowers and practice the principles as well. And it's phenomenal, because we are better together. Knowing your weaknesses, knowing your strengths, gifts, and talents is how you can add yourself to the world. But once again, that comparing and competing will just destroy you. You are not meant to be anyone but you. So here's a little story on fullness to help you understand me better. I have epilepsy, but I was supposed to have brain surgery so that they could remove that part of my brain, like literally a frontal lobotomy. And they couldn't do it because of the neural pathways where my seizures are in the language center of my brain. And I have holes in the language center of my brain. So reading and writing is really hard for me. But also singing. I'm incredibly tone deaf. And I had somebody say, but Tami, you can learn to sing a song. And I'm like, well, yeah, I could learn to sing a song, but how many hours would it take for me to learn to sing that song? And it was like 1,000 hours at least to make it all on tone and everything. And then I only get one song. But at the time when I was doing hair, I'm like, how many choir members could I do with that 1,000 hours? Then how many songs and how many voices do I get with my talent? Making them look and feel beautiful and them singing beautiful is a much better gift with my talent. Recognizing my weaknesses doesn't mean I'm weak. It means I'm smart enough to be truly strong and surround myself with people that can do things better than me. It's not an insult or a threat. It's a gift. beUtofullness means one whole person. That's the beginnings of the inUpowers. These principles that we teach and that are in that word started becoming into lessons. In fact, 12 of them. Have you noticed there's 12 emotional characters? There are 12 lessons. And all the principles in the lessons of beautifulness became characters in the inUpowers. We put a name and a face to emotion, to our two of beUtofullness, to our allow, accept, forgive, let go, set free, peace. It's not easy to be human. And the principles that are being taught will never be done perfectly. It's impossible. And you can dismiss them and not try, which is also an opportunity for you. You can do that too, or you compare yourself to somebody else's growth, which is all things you can do. But I would love to challenge you to see the brilliance of your own existence, to recognize that you matter. And everything might not be the way you think it is, but if you're truly listening to your heart right now, you know you are enough and you can become more and that you matter. That's all I ever wanted for everyone behind the chair, is to see the beauty I saw in them. And then as time went on and things went on, I realized on the website, I was going to have to ask really hard questions like, ladies, where did your fat go? Ugh! Did I make everybody cringe right then? Including the gentleman? Probably, because that is just a taboo question. But knowing where your fat goes on your body will help you dress your body so that you can look great. So I started creating animated characters to kind of be ahead of the game. So I could say, where does your fat go? And I could throw up Wham, which is our tornado. His name's What About Me? And then I could say something like, you called me fat, which is not what I said. But that way I could be ahead of it so I could fight the war in the head I heard for over 20 years. And as these characters started coming out and being drawn, I had my robust, phenomenal clientele, which I dearly miss. I miss you. And they taught me so much. They are amazing people that they needed it in schools and counselors. And honestly, the final straw was a VA counselor begged for them. And I hadn't had them but sketched. So I put my dream of doing hair aside and let it run on its own. And I collected a team of phenomenal, not just okay or decent, phenomenal counselors and therapists and teachers and curriculum designers and parents of autistic children. We even helped sex trafficking survivors and got all of their input to create the program, which is called the inUpowers. And they're pretty special. Instead of me talking about beautifulness and my behind the chair and behind the scenes life, you get to actually see a name and a face to an emotion, and you can start understanding yourself more. And with the help of my team and all their talents and their beautifulness, fabulous that they have, we have created a program that will help you understand your emotions well, too. Maybe I didn't say that right, but understand your emotions. I'm honored to be your host in the inUpowers podcast. I hope that by listening to us every Monday, that the challenge for the week you'll listen to, and that understanding the foundations of the inUpowers have helped you understand a little bit more of how they came to be and why they are important, and that comparing and competing against anyone will never help you. But understanding who you are and creating a new personal best and recognizing that you are enough can change all of our worlds. And we ask you through this whole thing, we're going to invite you to do a challenge every week, is to take a piece of beUtofullness and work on it. I'll remind you of them real quick. Be is the gift of your existence. What do you say about yourself and your body and your existence? Oh, I have this disease or that disease, or oh, I'm not like this person or that person, or I'm too tired, or I have too much energy, or blah, 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 blah. What are you saying about yourself? And then, or your uniqueness. Finding the values and what makes you look and be different than everyone else in the world that adds to our world. What's unique and special about you? Or 2, are you going to do the emotional health? Move forward. Allow, accept, forgive, let go, set free. And lastly, fullness. Your weaknesses and strengths, gifts and talents. What you bring to the world and how you make it a better place. Or you can be challenged to do all of it. beUtofullness, which is one whole person. Just trying a little more every day. Getting up every time you fall down. Falling down isn't hard. It's getting up where the muscles grow. And adding to our family. I want you to know I'm super happy, and us as a human family, we can do great things, and together we are better. And welcome to our inUpowers podcast, where we'll be addressing emotions. And look for us where podcasts are found, or on YouTube. You can also find us on our social media outlets. And this is my first one, so I'm sure he said and all kinds of things a lot, but hopefully you listened with some grace and recognize that I will keep trying for us. And I believe you and believe in you. And remember, emotions are information and behavior is a choice. Make it a great week. Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of the inUpowers podcast. We are grateful you are here. Please share this podcast with those you know who might need it, and follow and rate us so we can continue providing this podcast to you. Follow us on social media to see more visuals about the inUpowers, and join us next week for another episode. Until then, remember, the power to choose is in you.